What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace some old handbrake cables in your car. So if your handbrake either doesn't work, if one of them doesn't work, or let's say maybe it's seized, I'm going to show you guys how to fix that and get it so that your handbrake works as it should. So last week, I went ahead and replaced the brake rotors and pads, both found up front and back on my Accord, and I replaced them with EBC, yellow stuff pads, and AC Delco high carbon count rotors. So what that allowed me to do is allowed me to change out the old stuff, replace it with better upgraded stuff, and the brakes work as they're supposed to. But there's one problem that I found. While I was doing this, I realized that the handbrake cable on the driver's side didn't exactly want to work. So let me show you something. So when you go in the car and you pull the handbrake up as much as you can, goes right to the ceiling. Watch this, okay? See this wheel? It's not supposed to spin, but it does. Yeah, so we're gonna have to change that out. So what we're gonna be doing today is getting the carb in the air. I'm gonna take the wheels off and then I'm gonna get started with the install. So let me catch up with you guys in a second. So I have two replacement cables here. So I have the left side and I have the right side. So the way that these things work is that one of these cables attaches up to the caliper and the other one attaches to inside the vehicle where it mounts up to the handbrake mechanism. So when you open this up, everything should be new, everything should be nicely lubricated, and you'll be able to see that this end here mounts to inside the cabin, and then this side here attaches to the handbrake mechanism that's attached to the caliper. So it's pretty easy. There's gonna be a couple bolts and a couple brackets that we're gonna need to remove so that we can reinstall this one here. But the install itself is really straightforward. So once you go underneath the car, you're pretty much just gonna be removing this end, removing all the bolts, removing this little grommet here that keeps the outside stuff outside and inside stuff inside. This here's like a little rubber seal. And then just on the inside of the car, we're then gonna have to disconnect this and then we should be pretty much good to go. Now you'll be able to see that if you pull or push on this end here, it will move this end here. So take a look at this. So that is good. So see how this moves nice and smoothly? So that means that this is going to work nicely when we put this inside the car. Now, one thing that could also happen, if you guys have a handbrake and let's say you have to pull it all the way up and it just kind of grabs, this metal cable here will actually stretch over time. So if you guys do use your handbrake every day, every time you park as you're supposed to, you know, that cable could get stretched over time. So my car is a 2009. This is definitely a good time to replace them. So I'm gonna be changing out the cables both on the driver and passenger side of the car. So let's get started with going underneath the vehicle and disconnecting all the old stuff. So right now we're looking at the rear caliper and you'll be able to tell that there's a cable that's found on the back side of it. Now that mechanism right there is what controls and actuates the handbrake mechanism that's found inside the caliper. So what we're gonna be doing today is taking off this cable and replacing it with the new one. So take note of the orientation before you remove everything. So if it goes above a control arm, make sure that when you install the new one, you put it in that same location. If you were to, let's say, put it underneath or reroute it a different way, you may run into problems where the handbrake cable will not mount up properly. So just take note of that before you get started. So we're gonna start off with working on the back side of the car and we're gonna work our way forwards. So you can see right here that this is the little mechanism that's on the handbrake. Now to remove this, the easiest way that I find to do it is to actually remove the little bolt that's securing it up to the caliper first. So once you loosen this up and take this bolt out, what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to pull the cable out and it's not necessarily going to be so attached and fixed into place. With it out, you'll be able to slide it down, and then once you do that, you'll be able to see that you can actually slide it over top of this little end and it will be able to come off of the caliper just like that. And then you're going to pull this down and then you're gonna work your way forward. So pretty much every single one of these bolts is either a 10 or a 12 mil. Take them out and work your way to the front. Next up comes removing this little bolt and nut assembly right here. So take note that the cable goes above the control arm. So holding the bottom nut and then spinning the top, we should be able to break this loose. Now the beauty of doing all this is that this is not a complicated job and you can use simple hand tools to get everything done. So there's the nut. You can drop the bolt through the control arm and it should make the handbrake cable free just like that. So after this, we're gonna move our way forwards and disconnect the little bolt and bracket that's securing it up to the body of the car. Now the last bracket right here that's found underneath the car is held in place again with a 12mm socket. So take it out just like we were doing before. Now, do you guys notice if you guys are using power tools and you guys have really rusty bolts, tighten it while you're loosening it as well. So change between both motions so that you ensure that you don't actually snap that bolt. But that there is going to be the last part that's holding in the handbrake cable from underneath the car. Now, before we go ahead and jump inside the car, we're going to replicate the same thing on the other side. So be sure to disconnect the line that goes to the caliper, that connects up to the lower control arm, and then all the ones that connect up to the body. After that, we can move to inside the car and then get working on all that. Okay, so with the car in this state, we don't have anything else connected on the underside other than the little rubber grommets that are basically sealing off the outside and keeping it outside. So what we now need to do is go inside the car and get access to the back side of the cable. So it varies from car to car, but in my car, where it is actually underneath like the little center console area. There's a little cover on the back side that we're gonna have to pop off, and it'll expose all the internals that we're gonna need to get access to. So I'm currently in the back seat of my car. Here's the center console area, and this little cover back here is what comes off. So you'll be able to see like a little line back here. There's little clips that are just holding it in place. So if you pull back on it, the whole thing will be able to come right out. So we're gonna set that aside, and we will be able to see the internals and underneath here, which is where the cable actually comes into. So it connects both sides, both cables come underneath the car. They connect up in here by like the little rubber grommets, and then they both connect up to the handbrake mechanism right here. Now, if your car has the foot style handbrake, the cables are not going to be run through the center of the car right here. It will most likely be in a different location. Just to give you guys a better idea as to what's going on with the interior of the car, I removed my little center console cover right here. And if you want to get access to this end, take a look at where this is. So taking a look at the center console, here's the shifter, here's the handbrake mechanism. And if you come down, you'll be able to see the cable that's attached to the actual handbrake mechanism. Right there is the actual lever for it. And if you follow it down, you'll be able to see that it goes to that little line. And both of the actual cables that we're going to be changing out are going to be found in there. So when you pull up on this, you'll be able to bring them forward, and you should be able to get a better idea as to where those little cables are. So just take note. See it right there? So we need to slide the passenger side one out towards the passenger side, and then we'll be able to do the exact same thing for the driver's side, but instead of swinging it this way, we're going to have to swing it this way. That will be able to disconnect the cables from the handbrake mechanism in the car. To make the removal a little bit easier, I removed the two 12mm bolts, one there and one right there, that are securing the handbrake mechanism up to the body of the car. That allowed me to move the little like bracket that was found underneath there and disconnect both of the cables that are going to the handbrake. Following that, there's going to be this little bracket that's found underneath the back side of the car, and this is going to be securing both of the handbrake cables up to the chassis. So take these 12 mils out, take this bracket out, and then from the back side, you'll be able to get access to the handbrake cables, and you should be able to pull them down, like push them out like this, and then from underneath the car, you should be able to yank them through the chassis, like through the body of the car, and then out. That will then release them, and you should then be able to install the new cables back in this way. Now, on a side note, you can't really see it, but right here, my finger is touching the cable, and right here is the rubber grommet. So if you touch the floor, you'll be able to feel like the little rubber part down there that's sealing the outside part of the car outside. So it's preventing any water, rust, or whatever to come through the chassis, like through the body of the car. So you'll be able to push these down, yank them through, and then take these cables out. Alright, so what you guys are seeing here are both of the old handbrake cables. So this one here is the passenger side one, and you can see the other end is right here. This one here works as it's supposed to. However, there's one problem with it where you can see that it's actually something, I don't know, wore through it or something, but this eventually will rust out on me. So for preventative maintenance, I'm taking it out and swapping it out with a new one because I have already this one here that is broken. So this is the driver's side one. This one does not move whatsoever. So it's totally seized in there. And you can actually see, I'll get a closer look. So you can see here that this is totally worn through and rusted, and that's why the cable itself doesn't want to move at all. So we're taking this out and we're replacing it with a new one. As for installing these cables back in the car, it's pretty straightforward. Just make sure that you go in the exact same orientation that the cables were, and it should be all just a piece of cake. Now, make sure that when you're putting this connection here, like the little rubber grommet, past like the little seal up top of here, you want to make sure that it's properly installed in the vehicle, because if it's not, water can actually get into the cabin and then it will start rusting stuff. So just be sure to take your time and make sure that you install both of these properly. So this here is pretty much what it should look like. So you can see that we have the driver side cable installed, passenger side is not, but you can see how there's like a little bit of an outline around the perimeter of where that grommet goes. Make sure that the grommet completely covers that. That way that you'll know that you'll have a proper seal. Following that, it's just a matter of making sure that the handbrake cable routes in the exact same way as before. So I'm gonna catch up with you guys after I do that for both sides, and I'm gonna show you how to connect it back up to the caliper. So with the handbrake cable routed towards the back of the car, everything up towards the front is all where it's supposed to be. So before installing this little bracket and connector here up to the control arm, I'm first gonna bend this into kind of the position that it needs to be in, and then install this end here onto the brake caliper. So what that's going to do is gonna make sure that I have the caliper in the proper spot. So this here, that little opening goes over top of this little arm, slides over top, and then this here gets bolted in to this little bracket on the back side of the caliper. There's a little 12mm bolt that secures it in place, and then just tighten it up. So following this, we're gonna be mounting up this bracket here now into position. So you'll be able to see that this little bracket here has 5 different holes. This is an aftermarket control arm, but the stock control arm is the exact same way, where you're gonna have a hole where this little thing lines up, and you're gonna put the nut and bolt through it. So guide it like this. Make sure that the cable isn't touching any part of the body. Sure, that works. Put the bolt through, nut through the bottom, and then tighten it all up. Now next up, just do the exact same thing to the opposite side, and then you'll have a functioning handbrake. So with the handbrake off, this should spin nice and easily. You can tell that I washed the car before, and that's where the pads were. So I'm just gonna move it a little bit past that. So that right there is pretty much freely spinning. So if we go now in the car, pull up the handbrake a little bit. That's not even that much. That's a lot less than it was before. Now take a look at this. Yeah, good luck. Mint, functioning handbrake. So all we need to do next after the wheels are on is torque it all up, go back inside the car, and put the interior that we removed and took basically all apart. We have to put all that back together. Now, if that handle comes up too much after you replace the cables, what you might have to do is replace or loosen off the little nut that's found inside the cabin. So you know how the 2 lines went into like that little T connector, and then it went to the 1 cable to the actual handle? Well, there's a little nut on the back side of that. And if you tighten it, let's say your handle goes all the way up, what you're gonna be able to do is change when that lever goes all the way up and when it actually engages the rear brakes. So right now, it spins, handbrake up. That's like 5 clicks, however many clicks you guys just heard. Wheel doesn't move at all. Like, I probably have a better bet of throwing the car off of the jack stands than turning these tires. So with the Accord now in this state, there's only one more thing to do before we get started with the Accord build. Yes, you heard that right, Accord build. So I have upgraded motor mounts going in the Accord. I picked them up and I noticed a huge, sloppiness with the engine whenever you change gears because of this transmission. You notice it a little bit more. So I bought new transmission mounts, new engine mounts, and it's all gonna be replacing the old 10-year-old mounts that are inside the car. So that's gonna be coming out for a new video, guys. But if you guys have any further questions regarding this install, the comment section's down there. I have more information in the description box. If you guys want to find the tools or parts that you guys saw in this video, you guys can find that info down below. If you want to see a video of mine that I made for you guys a while ago about how to adjust your handbrake, you guys can find a link for that in the description box. But otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.